Hello, I'm Johnny Cash.
Johnny told me I'm my happiest when I'm performing. But sometimes Cash gets into trouble.
There was not one person that didn't respect Johnny Cash.
He sort of lived in his own atmosphere.
He was darkness and light living in the same body.
He was my hero for all the right reasons and all the wrong reasons.
It's all fleeting, as fame is fleeting.
He faced his worldliness and came out wanting to be right with God.
It's a biblical precedent that God uses complicated people.
Do you have any regrets about what you've done?
I forgave myself. When God forgave me, I figured I better do it too.
John Carter Cash, such an honor to be talking with you today. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing just fine. Doing okay. Just here in chilly Nashville.
Well, I'm sure you must be so excited for people getting ready to see this film. I told you before we got started, I had a chance to see it, a pre-screening of it. It is fantastic. I thought I knew the story of Johnny Cash. This just opened my eyes, though, to other stories and to other aspects of his life and his faith that I didn't really hear much about. Are you kind of getting that feedback as well?
Yes, definitely so. And I think that's it. People think they understood him, and the more that they look, of course, the more that you'll find. But this film in particular, it's such a diverse group of folks that are being interviewed, and then there's also so much footage, recordings of my father's voice. So you hear the story told, his own story told by his own words, and so in many different ways, I believe that this is a film that will touch people in ways that where a documentary hasn't been able to do that before. You feel like you're having a personal communication with him more so, and that was the goal in this film. Was to show, of course, to focus on his faith, but also to not be afraid to show the flaws and to show the struggles that he went through, just for the sake of hope that it could help somebody else.
And let's talk about that, because that was one of my first takeaways. I knew that he battled addiction, but I think addiction in different forms these days is still so prevalent in our world right now. And I think this is a message that really needs to be heard.
It's all usually right in our hands. We can find our first addiction. Yeah, there's so many different things. Yeah, everywhere. Yeah, I do agree.
So what is that message that you would hope people today, because again, his story, his faith journey is just as relevant today, as it was, years ago?
Yeah, that we're not alone, for one thing, and that we're not unique, and that we can come together in a higher understanding, and by reaching out to each other. And my father was he was the first to tell you that he had fallen short, and that he'd gotten back up and had made the effort with the help of many different people to gain back his strength. And Dad, he had points in his life where he hit hard rock bottoms, and I believe he wouldn't be alive today if it hadn't been for his faith and his connection with God, and with the fear of losing his own life, of course. And without the strength of the loved ones that he reached out to, without having the fear to say, "Hey, I need your help." And so there's a lot of understanding of that in this film. We see my father go through those periods of darkness. We see him get back up again. We see what it meant to him when he was at the top of his game. What his faith meant to him, that he wasn't afraid to sing gospel songs on a live television show if that's what he believed in. There's so much to be gleaned from understanding the struggles that he went through, and then facing our own struggles in life likewise.
It's interesting. I want to get your kind of perspective, because I think as a parent, one of my biggest prayers for my kids is that my kids don't have faith and believe in God because mom and dad did. I want them, I want Jesus and God to be real to them because they have experienced him personally. Mm-hmm. What was it in your life that made you, I'm assuming there's a moment that said, you know what, I know God is real, not because it's what Johnny Cash believes and that you've seen him. What has happened in your life for you to say, I believe?
Well, first of all, joy in connection with, through a pastor that I went to see when I was a boy. There have been a few instances in my life, and this doesn't always happen with people, but where God made His presence known to me, there was no way to deny it. A few miracles that have occurred in my life, where I've come face to face with the reality that there is something bigger than me and something guiding the way. Now, I don't know how often it inserts itself or exactly what that is, and I don't think it's an old man in the clouds. But I know there is something much bigger than me, and so maybe it's a point of struggle that some people get to, and I know with it for me also that there's some times where I've hit a bottom, and then God was there because I reached out and needed it so bad, and felt empty and alone. But then there's also that, as I say, great period of joy and comprehension, understanding. I mean, I go back to when I was first baptized, feeling as if the angels in heaven were washing over my body. And I mean, there's so many different ways that I believe that God and Spirit, angels, that we can find understanding. Of course, number one being through Christ and through what lessons He laid out for us to see.
I love that. I want to talk too, if we can, about the devotional that came out this year. I think with people, when they see this film, I think it's going to just to renew, interest in his life again. I think it's a great Christmas gift as well. But talk about the devotional and what you hope, maybe that can provide, people maybe into the new year.
Yeah, there's just a number of a lot of things that my father said were very profound and that connected with certain scriptures, and so I think that was part of the mission that was set about, was to create a series of works that were focused on my father's faith. That was what was important to him, and so we try to carry that on. That no matter what else is happening with Dad's legacy, or what movies you hear his songs in, or whatever, that if you want to know more about God, you can also find that through His words and through His life. And so that's what this was about. The devotional book and this film was giving people a place to go to look. And find my father's mission in life, and to really understand what he stood for. Number one, which was to continue to profess his faith as a Christian, and our faith as a Christian is like someone said this earlier in the interview. It's like my father was not very churchy. He wasn't. He was. He was the guy that sat in the back of the church with the old man that no one else would talk to. He was the one that everybody looked at when he walked in, and uncomfortably as he sat down in the front row. I mean, he was, but he was the one who had the pastor's ear at the end of the sermon, and the one who understood a point that no one else did. And so, I mean, Dad was more kin to Peter than he was to John or to Luke. He was flawed, but he was not afraid to show that, and I think a lot of humanity connects with that.
Yeah, I think they can. Let's go back to the film here before we close. How important is that people see it in the theaters, show their support for this type of storytelling, I think, in an actual, theater?
He looks really good on the big screen. I don't know what it's just. I don't look as good as he does. I got a lot of beard. I got more beard then when I did those interviews than I do now. But no, I don't know. It's really the sonics, the music is going to be amazing. It's going to be wonderful to hear the songs that are there on the big screen, and it's just, for one thing, I love the movie theaters, and I love being able to go back out, and I'm grateful that we have that opportunity now. I think it's going to be a good film to enjoy this weekend in the theaters. Get a chance.
And by the way, some other big names that I think people are going to know and love and see. Tim McGraw. I mean, that's one of the first ones that came to mind. Was it pretty easy getting other, musical guests to come along and share this story?
Yes, I mean, so many people love my father from all different walks of life. From folks like Franklin Graham to Greg Laurie to Alice Cooper to Tim McGraw, to Winona Judd. I mean, all across the board. Marty Stewart. So many people, and of course my father's sister Joanne. I mean, they lent their understanding of my father and who he was to this film. So very grateful for all those folks being a part of it.
Oh, well, God bless. I hope that it has great success in the theaters here in just a couple of days. And I really appreciate your time. Thank you for everything that you're doing. And we look forward to future projects.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Do you have any regrets about what you've done?
I forgave myself. When God forgave me, I figured I better do it too.